Imagine this. You are miles from camp, deep in the wilderness, and you just heard the worst sound a human being can hear. Your own bone snapping. No ambulance, no surgeon, no painkiller, no phone. Just you, the ground, and a body that is now broken. And something in the darkness just heard you fall. What happened next is one of the most remarkable stories in all of human history. And the answer will shock you. First, let's understand what a broken bone actually meant in the primitive era. Today, a fracture means 6 weeks in a cast and some painkillers. Back then, it meant something completely different. It meant you could no longer hunt, no longer gather, no longer run from predators. In a world where survival required constant movement, being immobile was a death sentence. Or at least, it should have been. But here is where the story gets extraordinary. Archaeologists have found ancient human bones, tens of thousands of years old, that show healed fractures. Bones that broke. And then completely healed. Which means someone survived. Someone was cared for. Someone made it through. The question is, how? What did primitive humans actually do when someone's bone snapped, with nothing but their hands and whatever the land provided? The answer changes how you think about ancient humans forever. The first minutes after a break were the most dangerous. Shock. Blood loss if the bone pierced skin. And the very real risk of passing out, alone in the open. If you were lucky, your tribe found you fast. And in tight hunter-gatherer bands, someone always noticed when a member didn't return. They carried the injured person back to camp. Primitive stretchers made from branches and animal skins. This was not random kindness. This was tribal law. You protect your own, always. Back at camp, the most experienced member examined the break. In most primitive bands, this was the elder, the healer, the one who had seen this before. They would feel the break with their hands, assess whether the bone was clean or shattered, whether skin was broken. No x-ray, no imaging, just touch and experience. And then came the part that required unimaginable courage from everyone in that circle. Setting the bone without anesthesia, without sedation. The bone had to be manually pulled back into alignment while the person was fully conscious. The pain was beyond anything most people alive today will ever experience. And somehow, they endured it. Once the bone was set, it had to stay in position. And this is where ancient human ingenuity becomes genuinely breathtaking. Straight, rigid branches were selected. Bark was stripped into long, flat pieces. Plant fiber was twisted into cordage. All gathered from the immediate environment, all done by hand. Soft plant material or moss was packed against the skin first to prevent pressure sores. Then the rigid branches were placed on either side of the break, then bound tightly with plant fiber or strips of animal hide. A primitive splint. Functional, effective. And we know this worked because the healed bones in the archaeological record prove it. Evidence of splinting and bone setting has been found across multiple ancient cultures on every inhabited continent. This was not one tribe figuring it out. This was humanity independently solving the same problem. But the splint was only part of the treatment. What they applied to the skin around the break is something that still surprises modern researchers. Certain plants, turmeric, comfrey, willow bark, clay minerals, applied as poultice directly to the fracture site. Modern science has since confirmed many of these plants contain genuine anti-inflammatory and analgesic compounds. They weren't guessing. They were applying thousands of years of accumulated knowledge. Setting the bone was one battle. The recovery was an entirely different war. A major fracture takes 6 to 8 weeks to heal even today, with optimal nutrition and rest. In the primitive era, that meant 6 to 8 weeks of total dependence on your tribe. Someone had to feed you, bring you water, help you relieve yourself, keep the fire going beside you, every day, for weeks. This is the part that stops most people cold. These ancient humans chose to care for the injured, even when it cost the tribe resources and energy. They could have left the injured behind. In survival terms, it would have made cold, logical sense. They didn't. And the infection risk during recovery was enormous. An open fracture, where bone pierces skin, exposed the wound to bacteria with no antibiotics to fight it. Ancient healers cleaned wounds with running water, applied antimicrobial plant compounds, changed dressings made of fresh leaves regularly. Some infections they beat, some they didn't. The difference between survival and death often came down to one thing: how fast the tribe responded and how skilled the healer was. Now here's the part of this story that is impossible to forget. Archaeologists have found Neanderthal skeletons 50,000 years old with fully healed complex fractures. Injuries that would have required weeks of immobilization and consistent care. These individuals could not have survived without sustained help from others. Someone fed them, protected them, chose not to leave them behind. The instinct to care for the injured, to not abandon the vulnerable, did not begin with modern civilization. It is ancient, it is wired into us. Every person in history who survived a serious injury before modern medicine survived because of other people. Not medicine, not technology, people. And that truth, that human beings have always chosen to protect each other against impossible odds, is perhaps the most powerful thing science has ever uncovered about our species. You come from people who survived the unsurvivable, who were cared for when caring cost everything. Drop unbreakable in the comments if this gave you a completely different picture of who our ancestors really were. And tell me, what part of this hit hardest?